The palace of Kareth was carved from living crystal, each spire shimmering beneath the twin suns. To the alien princess Elenia, its beauty was a birthright. She was born to rule, destined to sit upon the amethyst throne, and groomed in laughter sharper than daggers. Her people, the Orlith, were creatures of elegance and cruelty, tall and pale with luminous veins that pulsed beneath their skin like rivers of light. They valued what above steel, cruelty above kindness, and above all, the domination of outsiders. And so, when the council forced her into a marriage with a human soldier, a man captured during the border wars, she laughed. She laughed at the absurdity, at his quiet ways, at the way his hands were scarred from battles instead of manicured like haze. The court called him Kale of Terror, but he said little, offering only nods, silence, and an expression carved from stone. Where others quipped, he listened. Where they mocked, he endured. To Elenia, he was an amusing toy, her silent husband, and she made sport of him at feasts. "Tell us, human," she would sneer, her voice ringing across jeweled halls. "Can your tongue even form words, or is silence the only gift your kind brings to royalty?" The courtiers laughed. Kale only bowed his head. What none saw, what none cared to notice, was the sword he carried, a relic of terror, forged in forgotten forges. Its hilt was simple, worn, but its blade shimmered faintly when light kissed it. The Orlith thought it dull compared to their crystal spears and plasma bows. But Kale's hand rested on it often, almost as if it whispered to him. And so the days passed, filled with Elenia's ridicule and Kale's silence. But silence is depths that laughter cannot measure. Middle, rumors spread of a rising darkness beyond the border stars. A warlord of the Umbrith clans, shadows made flesh, was carving through outposts and burning colonies. Unlike the Orlith, they respected no treaties, no crystal walls. They hungered for blood and flame. The council dismissed the warnings at first. But when black ships pierced the skies of Kareth, the laughter of courtiers died. Elenia watched from a balcony as fire streaked the heavens. Her crystal palace shook. For the first time, she felt something like fear. The council gathered. Warriors of Orlith raised their glittering weapons, their armor shimmering with light. They believed themselves untouchable. But Kale, standing at the edge of the chamber, spoke his first word since his binding to Elenia. His voice was deep, carrying the weight of Earth's forgotten wars. "Your light will shatter. Your crystal walls will fall. The Umbrith do not fear brightness. They devour it. If you stand unprepared, your kingdom will burn before dawn." The council hissed. Alien nobles sneered at the audacity of a mere human to speak. But Elenia tilted her head, startled not by his word but by the fire in his eyes. "And what would you do, silent husband?" she asked mockingly, though her voice faltered. Kale drew his sword, and for the first time, the court heard it sing. It was not the hum of plasma or the shimmer of crystal. It was a low, resonant whisper, like fire licking dry wood, like storms gathering beyond the horizon. The air vibrated. Orlith courtiers stepped back as if heat radiated from the steel. "I would fight," Kale said simply. "Not with laughter, not with illusions, but with fire." Rising conflict. When the Umbrith descended, they came as a storm. Their soldiers poured into the crystal city, shadows given flesh, wielding void-forged axes at shattered walls. Light dimmed wherever they stepped. The Orlith faltered. Their crystal weapons cracked. Their luminous bodies dimmed. Panic rippled across the palace. Elenia found herself cornered in the Hall of Echoes, surrounded by guards struggling to hold the line. And then she saw him, her silent husband, striding forward, blade in hand. At first, she laughed again, a desperate sound. "You think your iron toothpick will save us." But then Kale moved. The sword sang once more, this time not a whisper but a roar. Flames erupted from the steel, coiling down the length of the blade, spilling across the marble floor. With every swing, he carved through the Umbrith like fire through paper. The air filled with sparks. Shadow screamed. Elenya froze. Her laughter died on her lips. She had mocked his silence, mocked his sword. But now she saw truth. This human was not a toy, not a captive, but a warrior forged in flame. Her gods, inspired, rallied around him. For the first time, all his soldiers followed the lead of a human. The battle raged across the palace. Kale fought without pause, his silence now a terrifying strength. While others shouted and panicked, he moved with precision, every strike measured, every step steady. His sword whispered fire, and the umbreth fell back. But the warlord himself emerged, a towering figure of shadow, armored in living darkness. His voice was a thunderclap. Who wields flame in my void? Kale stood firm. A husband. The jewel shook the crystal city. Fire clashed with darkness, steel against void. Kale's blade burned brighter with every strike, feeding on his resolve, his fury, his silence. Climax. Elenya watched, her chest tight, as Kale faltered beneath the weight of the shadow warlord strikes. Each blow sent cracks across the marble. His silence seemed to break into ragged breaths. For the first time, she feared he might fall. Something stirred in her, shame, regret, and something deeper. She had mocked him, belittled him, refused to see the strength within his silence. But now she saw him not as a plaything, but as a shield, a flame burning for them both. And so, for the first time, she fought beside him. Grabbing a fallen spear of crystal, she hurled it with precision, striking the warlord's side. The distraction gave Kale the opening he needed. With a roar that was not silence but truth, he drove his flaming sword into the warlord's chest. Fire erupted, consuming shadow. The umbra screamed and dissolved into ash. The battlefield fell silent. Only Kale remained standing, his blade still glowing with embers. Ending. The city was saved, though scarred. The council bowed their heads, not in mockery but in respect. The courtiers whispered of the silent human whose blade sang fire, and of the princess who stood beside him. That night, Elenya approached him on the balcony where once he had laughed at his silence. The twin suns were setting, painting the sky in blood and gold. "Kale," she whispered, her voice stripped of mockery. "I was blind. I thought silence weakness. But your silence carried more strength than all my laughter." Kale looked at her, eyes weary but steady. "Silence is not emptiness," he said softly. "It is a fire waiting to be called." Elenya reached for his hand, not out of duty, not for appearances, but with something like reverence. For the first time, the princess did not laugh. She bowed her head to her husband, and the flame of his sword became the flame between them. And in the annals of Kareth, they wrote not of mockery, but of the day when a silent human and an alien princess stood together, bound not by chains, but by fire.